Alright, we're in it. We're gonna be doing this now. Alrighty. How do I start this? Okay. Basically, the premise of this little recording is to talk about this suspension design that I came up with right now. I don't know if anybody else has come up with this or not, but for now, this is the only one I've seen. And the premise is that it's a simple yet also realistic take on a suspension system in ScrapMechanic. Um, Basically, what that means is, you know how a car you're driving, you say you go over a hill, a little hill, and all your wheels are still on the ground. They're still touching the ground. Like, let's see. Yeah, this is probably a good example. You'll see that every single tire, even though this tire is lifted up, is still touching the ground. Even that one, it's still touching the ground, which means it still has traction. And that's really important because if any of your tires are not touching the ground at any given time, you're one, losing traction, and two, you're putting too much stress on that one part of your car, which is bad. So remember, people, go get your suspension tweaked if this becomes an issue. Anyway, so the basic idea. Let me get this out, the paint tool. Right, so I have a lot of suspension for such a tiny car, and well, basically, I have. Let's start with the front tires. So the front tires, they don't need a forward and backward suspension because, as you can see, they're rear wheel drive, so these aren't going to get pushed or pulled by the tires that are up here. They'll get pushed by the whole body being pushed forward, so I don't need to worry about compensating for that, which is why these ones have a, I don't know the axis is, but let's just go ahead and call this one a Z-axis suspension, and then this one's going to be an X-axis suspension, and then these ones are going to be Y. So this is going to be X. So these two X-axis suspension are for when you're turning. So I'll show you right now. X is to zoom in. Alright, so when I'm driving, it takes a little bit to get started because it's a little heavy. But when I turn, you'll see that the suspension will cushion the turn a bit, especially when I hit bumps going into the turn. So this prevents a lot of jittering at higher speeds. And then if you're looking at the back suspension, you'll also notice that the Z-axis suspension are also cushioning the bumps that when the tire gets a little bit more extra traction, it doesn't just shoot your whole creation to the left or right because of a little boost in speed. It instead absorbs it and just, flip it back. Okay, we're good. It absorbs it like it's supposed to. And then you'll notice for the Y-axis suspension, like say I go on this little hill here with this side, you'll see that all my tires are still on the ground, even though I'm moving. Let's try to get a good view of that. I don't know how good of a view this is actually going to be, but very bouncy. Let's see, is there any... I know I just passed this small tree, but that one was on a hill, which is very awkward. This one's kind of also on a hill, but let's try it. Alright, let's see. Oh, get it going. Okay, so you bottom out, obviously, which is a problem. I got on the one part that it's just a little too high. Come on, let go. Oh, you're almost there. Oh, oh. This is the only issue with rear-wheel drive vehicles is that if you get bottomed out, mostly bottomed out, and then only your front tires are touching the ground, you won't get any traction because obviously they're not controlled by the engine. So let's try this one over here. It looks more or less the same, but it's a little bit of a flatter spot. So you'll notice I'm trying to get one wheel over at a time. But yeah, not much commentary there. It's just kind of visual representation. Um, there's not much else to talk about it, other than that if you build this yourself, you're going to have to tweak it a lot based on the vehicle's weight and distribution. And by distribution, I mean like size and every axis, like if it's a tall vehicle or a wide vehicle or a long vehicle, you'll have to tweak the suspension. But for this, which is, I'm not sure the size of this. Let's go ahead and measure it with the paint tool. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's 6. I know every single section of metal is 4, so that's 2, 6, 10. It's 12. 12 long, and I believe it should be 6 wide. 12 long, 6 wide. Yeah, okay, for a 12 long, 6 wide, fully metal, the inner X suspension are set to 3 each to give it some good give. Because if it's too loose, let's go take it down to 2, or set it down to 1 for the extreme. If it's too loose, then it'll do this, which could be a good thing in some scenarios, but I personally like the tires to not wiggle around so much, because as you can see, like, my turning angle is kind of trash right now. You can see that I'm not turning as sharply as I was before. I feel as if I wasn't turning as sharply as I was before. Here, let's go ahead and lower this engine a bit. Boost it to 2. Alright, let's try it now. Let's go back onto the grass for consistency. I should also boost the engine up one more for full consistency. Come on. I just didn't want to start. All right, yeah. This thing is definitely turning better, but still not as good as it was before. Because it's still one level, um, one level below what it was before when I first tweaked it. But yeah, you'll see that before the X-axis suspension actually squishes all the way, the vehicle will actually pivot a little bit to the side. It'll lean, which gives the tire that's going into the turn a little bit more traction to turn better, instead of the suspension just giving in and then the vehicle not leaning into the turn. Yeah, you see that slight lean? Yeah, you want that actually. You actually want that for a vehicle that's well distributed in the weight department. If it's not well distributed, say it's top heavy, it'll flip right the heck over, and then, you know, that's bad. But as you can see as I'm driving along, let's go ahead and zoom out the camera a bit. As you can see as I'm driving along, you'll see the vehicle wiggle a lot, but you won't see the vehicle lose control. It generally stays going completely straight. Maybe it'll shift a little bit to the left or right depending on the angle of the hill I'm going down. But generally it goes perfectly straight no matter how many bumps I hit. As I skew a little bit to the left because of the stupid hill shape. Alright, let's try going through some actual terrain instead of just the outskirts, because I mean, what's the point in driving around just the outskirts? I may as well just have a flat world. So let's go through some of the terrain and actually test this thing out. Let's try this little bowl here. Oop, we're flipping. Yep. Now, I have this idea because I used to do this a lot. Ever since they included the straight suspension in Trailmakers, I've been doing this quite a lot with a lot of my formula cars. I don't really have a recording of that, but I might do that in the future if this goes well, which it probably won't because I'm terrible at editing. So, haha, sorry people. Yeah, I want to learn how to edit, but it takes a lot of time, and my job doesn't really facilitate that. And plus, I hate learning. And by hate learning, I mean self-learning. I would have to take an actual class to learn the best way, which costs money, or YouTube tutorials, but self-learning is basically YouTube tutorials, because I'd have to watch the tutorial, and then I'm off topic. Anyway, back to Trailmakers. So I've been doing this a lot with formula cars and Trailmakers, and we're flipped again. Jeez Louise, I should probably make this a little bit longer, to be honest, to prevent the flipping. But trailmakers, formula cars. Basically, this suspension system benefits best from a vehicle that's being pulled down to the ground. In trailmakers, you have spoilers, which is actually perfect. So you have a lot of downforce, and your turning really benefits from this because when you're turning, the faster you're going, in this game at least, because I don't have any of my mods equipped, installed. They're installed, but I just don't have them turned on. If I could provide downforce, I mean, if I put like thrusters on, but again, I don't have any mods, so I don't have the mini thrusters. If I put thrusters on it in the front and the back, level 1, just put a little bit of downforce, the turning would be even better at higher speeds. But as you know, in Trailmakers you have spoilers, so that's not really a problem. Which is really good for formula cars because you put the spoilers in the front, make it look like the obviously the F1 cars. They have that big flat base that provides aerodynamics in the front, the nose. Yeah, commentary, fun times. Anyway, point being, it's really good. This exact same suspension system is very good in Trailmakers. It's actually pretty good in ScrapMechanic too, but it takes a lot more tweaking. I notice that in ScrapMechanic is much more technical, which is why I don't play it as much as Trailmakers. Trailmakers is just kind of throw the blocks on and then do a little bit of tweaking here and there, like turning angles and the speed of the turning angles, and if you're using logic, yada yada yada. But the ScrapMechanic is a lot more tedious, I would say. I mean, once you get the basics of it, it doesn't become as tedious. But let's be honest, ScrapMechanic is tedious. I wonder how survival's going to go for this game, considering how tedious it actually is. I mean, granted, it's gonna be fun. We all know it's gonna be fun, the survival mode, because it's gonna be actually crafting the blocks you build with. But the building aspect is gonna be a little bit difficult because I know Con Gaming. He's really good at logic and he's really good at all that goodness because he's an engineer. He knows these things. So when survival comes out, he's gonna benefit the most from it because he can do so much with so little. Whereas people like me, Scrapman, Komodo Gaming, Wanderbot. I mean, Wanderbot's pretty good too. I haven't actually seen him play ScrapMechanic in a long time. He's been mostly diddling around in indie games and more of the AAA titles that he's interested in, which more power to him. And me, I don't really record all too much because, well, again, I'm not really good at it. This is gonna be like really freaking long, and it doesn't need to be. I'm just showing off suspension. Um, yeah, those are my thoughts. Survival's gonna be pretty good to people who know how to really manipulate the games. Summary of that whole phrase is summary of that whole spiel, that whole rant is survival's gonna be good for those who can manipulate the game to the fullest. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If only these pipes were actually underground, I'd be able to actually go over them. Oh, oh, oh. No, that's not happening. That's not happening. But that was pretty good. I mean, you saw that, right? The wheel just popped right up there. Not much of an issue. Just goes right up. Yeah, that's pretty good. Pretty good. I can't remember. I used to watch this YouTuber. He was not that popular when I started watching him, but nah, I don't know how many subscribers or how many viewers he has now. But he builds very realistic engineering for ScrapMechanic. Like he'll build realistic engines, he'll build realistic suspensions for like semi trucks, like pickup trucks, um, dune buggies. I can't remember his name though. I haven't watched any of his content in a long time. So sorry, I can't really advertise him. But yeah, this was in the early days before mods, scripted mods became a thing. He used to do this just with vanilla parts. He used the old Derf mod pack, and he would, well, vanilla parts and the old Derf mod pack, and he would just build dune buggies that have realistic suspension, a whole lot of give. Like the earlier test I did where I put the what is it, the lift under the tire and lifted it up. You'd be able to do that, and you'd be able to take the lift maybe 3 dwarfs high, and your other tire on the opposite side would still be touching the ground. It would be very like at an angle because of how high up the vehicle. Like for example, because I just flipped the vehicle anyway, maybe well. So it'd be like this, where he would have the lift like this high, or probably about this high, and this tire over here. See, obviously you can see it, but this tire over here would still be on the ground. It would still be touching the ground. So it was pretty ridiculous, but really interesting and cool. And I'd love to be able to build something like that, but I just don't have the engineering know-how. I'm a computer technician. I know computer parts. I don't know vehicle parts that well. What the heck happened there? Are you? Is my vehicle broken? I think my vehicle exploded. Hold on. What happened? Yeah, I know, but you're bottomed out on a rock anyway. You can't get away. Anyway, so that's just the gist of that. I don't know how long this recording is going to be. I might try to trim it down a bit, but again, I don't know editing very well. So it'll be janky if I do. I wouldn't mind doing a little bit of a tutorial on how to do, like, actually assemble the suspension, although it's pretty easy to understand how it's built. Just real quick though, let me show you the welding. So as you can see, there is no real welding. It's literally just the base. You cut out the spaces you want to put the suspension in so it's streamlined, and then you stick the suspension in. Although it's very important to understand this part right here, these two parts here. I mean, if you do watch ScrapMan, you'll see that when he usually builds his vehicles, he'll put the suspension here, which works, but honestly, I would prefer it if people put the suspension on this side. And the reason why is because, how do I put this? Actually, now that I have at least some of you, if you're interested in watching, we can do this. I didn't even place it. Go ahead and do this. Let's just give a little example of what I'm talking about. Okay, we're just going to put a pipe piece, suspension. Yep, quality content right here. Okay, let's go ahead and lift that up. Oh wait, I just did the thing again. That was literally not about to show anything off. Yep. We're just gonna put a tire because it's not gonna be moving, so we're just gonna put a tire there. Okay. So as you can see, even at level 1, this isn't really, it's not giving to the weight the of this, because this is stiff and this is holding it up. So it's basically as though there isn't any suspension at all. Like only when you put pressure on the base would there be any give, which, is bad because the way I see it, it's like if you're bottoming out, then you'll get suspension. But I don't know if this does anything for a full vehicle. I could build one right now, but I'm not going to because this is already too long. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to show off my design. The reason why I have both is for up and down suspension instead of this one would be considered up suspension or down, whatever. We'll look into it right now because I'm trying to grasp this myself at the moment. I'm not crazy, I swear. Let's go ahead and put this on the lift. Make my life easier. And then we're just gonna pop this here, and we're gonna put a tire here. Got stuck on something. I don't know what happened there. Okay. Let's set this to 1, and then let's just go ahead and remove this. Okay. It would probably help if the tire was a little bit lower than that. Goodness me. Yeah, let's go with that. Just put 2 of them. And there you go. You'll see that the tire is what's accepting the suspension. So if we raise this up to 3, 4 maybe, you can see that the tire is actually being affected by the base is actually being affected by the suspension instead of the opposite direction. And what the heck happened here? Why are you just... Okay. Okay. Alright. And then let's go ahead. This is already saved. Let's just go ahead and look at this real quick. Yep. Doing exactly what I said. We're gonna look at this real quick. Let's just delete the engine, delete the chair, slap a controller on her somewhere, just put a controller on. Wow. Yep, this is, yep, quality content right here. We're only putting the controller here so they keep the things straight. Okay, so I'm gonna set this, oh, it's already set to 1. Yeah, okay. So these basically aren't here. Those basically aren't even here, and they're straight. Alright, so this, underneath it, this is what suspension there does. It just makes it so the base can wiggle. So yeah, this is, I guess this would be considered upward suspension. Whereas these ones on the outside, let's go ahead and raise these up to 4 so that they're actually stiff. Alright, and lowers these ones to 1. This would be downward suspension. See what I mean? So, a stiffer downward suspension would prevent you from bottoming out from the tires being pressure applied. Is this at 3? Okay, yeah, they're all at 3. But a combination of the two would mean if the tires aren't being pressed on by anything, but the base of your car is, then the tires can still touch the ground. But if the tires are being shifted, which this thing's unlevel, not level. You'll see that in this case, the body of the car is able to flex to allow the wheels to stay on the ground. Even if it's being, let's see, honestly, I should just spawn another one because I've already been talking about this for too long and you guys probably already understand the premise of it, but for those who don't, I'm just trying to fully engross you in the information. Oh yeah, I forgot. I forgot that I moved the chair back to equalize the weight a bit. Probably resave it. Then move the chair back again. Okay. Alright, so go ahead and resave it. What did I name it before? Is it grade suspension? I think I named it grade suspension. That's what it is. Grade suspension. Yes. I would like, okay, yeah. Yeah, it was named Great Suspension. Good. Awesome. Crud, I forgot. I forgot the simple decoration blocks that I put on during my test for the recording. Yep. Save. Yep. Thank you. Ow, my throat. For some reason, me talking into a microphone always hurts my friggin' throat. Okay, but you'll see. If you're looking at the, we just talked about this and I already forgot. Is this upward or downward suspension? Okay, the one for the base is the upward suspension, and then the one for the tires is the downward suspension. You'll see that the downward suspension is what's being used mostly, because obviously the tires are the ones moving around and they're the ones being affected. But you'll see that the upward suspension is also being used. Oh, goodness gracious. Ugh. Whatever. You know what? Let's sum it up to it's a good suspension design. I highly recommend trying it. And explaining it, I can just go on and say the same thing over and over again in different ways and get nowhere, which I've been doing probably for an hour, which is terrible. I'm probably going to cut this video in half. If I'm just going to cut it clean in half, it's going to be a terrible cut, and everybody's going to mention it. I don't care. It's just basically, it's a good suspension design. I really suggest you try it. I've already said that. Yeah. There's no good way to end this video, so I'm just gonna kind of end it. I'm just gonna kind of end it here. You know, there's not much else you can really do. So yeah, thanks for watching. Like, favorite, and subscribe. Except don't do those things because I'm a terrible YouTube editor and terrible YouTube content creator, and I have no schedule. I just do it whenever I want. It's kind of ironic considering all the giants really want to be able to do it whenever they want, but they feel obligated to put out content for those who watch it. I mean, they love doing it, and I like doing it too. I would love to do this more often, but I would have to get either an editor or I would have to learn how to edit, which is a lot of work, and let's be honest, I'm lazy. I am. I like playing video games. I don't like work. But I'm a human being. I need to work. I'm an adult. Gotta work. But yeah. This went from scrap mechanic to philosophy. I guess? Psychiatry? Mental state. Whatever. Uh if anybody does watch this and you can get over and ignore my spieling and my long-winded explanations and my overall rambling, let me know what you think about the suspension and how I can improve it. And I might just do that in a different video and hopefully talk less about random stuff. And yeah, I also highly suggest if you're into Scrap Mechanic, you do check out Scrapman, you check out Con Gaming. If you're more into the aesthetic builds, check out Komodo Gaming. And if you're into the, I guess you could say, aesthetic and function builds, you should check out Moonbow. I haven't talked about Moonbow too much because I'm not really into the content he covers, but you might be, so I suggest giving him a little bit of a peek. Um, and that's about it, honestly. I have no affiliation with these people. They're just people I like to watch. So I feel like if you guys are interested in that as well, give them a peek. Um, that's pretty much it. I hope everybody has a good day, and I guess I'll talk to you later if I ever upload again. I should, but I might not. Who knows? Who knows how this world works? All right, bye-bye.